Welcome, everyone, to another deep dive.
Yeah, excited to be here.
So today, we're going deep into the world of defects. Defect management and reporting in software.
Ooh, defects.
Yeah.
Sounds a little...
Yeah, it doesn't sound super exciting.
Yeah.
But actually, it's incredibly important to understand how software teams handle these issues, because this is really how you know.
Right.
The difference between, like, a really polished piece of software and something that's just kind of
Headache-inducing.
headache-inducing, exactly.
Yeah.
So for you, listener, we know you're busy and you don't have all day to kind of wade through the weeds of this. So we're going to distill down the core knowledge of defect management.
Absolutely.
What they are, the journey they go through, how to report them effectively so they get fixed, and then some of the tools that help keep everything on track.
That's the plan.
So first off, what are we even talking about when we say defect? Like, what
is a defect?
Who does that?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, you often hear kind of the formal definition, like a variance from expected behavior or requirements.
Which is
really what that means is the software isn't doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, think about you tap a button, you expect one thing to happen.
Right.
And either nothing happens or the wrong thing happens.
Exactly.
Like,
right?
that's a defect.
Yeah, that's a defect in action right there.
Right.
And those unexpected behaviors, they can show up in all sorts of different ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, for example, you've got a button.
Right.
It does nothing when you click it. That's a functional defect, right? The core purpose of that button is not working.
Yeah, it's broken.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you also might have a user interface defect. So that could be like a button that's misaligned, or maybe it's overlapping with something else.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't stop you from using it, but it looks bad.
Right.
It looks unprofessional, can be confusing.
Right.
Then there's things like performance defects. So, for example, a web page that takes forever to load, even though it should be pretty snappy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we can't forget security defects. These are really critical, right? These are flaws that could actually leave the software vulnerable.
Right.
So, for example, if your password wasn't encrypted properly.
Right, yeah. So it's not just like crashing or like blue screen of death or something.
No. It's really...
It's much broader than that.
Anything that falls short of what should happen.
Oh, for sure. It's really anything that deviates from what was intended,
right.
What was agreed upon.
Okay, so where do these unexpected issues originate? Like, what's the...
Yeah, where do they come from?
What's the cause? Well, it's pretty varied, actually. It can be a lot of different things. Sometimes, it's as simple as just a miscommunication between the people envisioning the software and the ones actually building it.
Right, yeah.
If the initial requirements aren't clear, or maybe they change during the project and that's not communicated effectively, that just sets you up for discrepancies.
Right.
Between what gets built and what was expected.
Right. And maybe the requirements themselves are bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were vague or contradictory or just incomplete to begin with.
Right.
And of course, we can't forget just human error, right? Like,
oh, yeah, absolutely.
Programmers and testers are people, so.
They are human.
Yeah.
And coding and testing is a complex process.
Right.
Mistakes happen.
Yeah, you could have just a simple typo.
A typo, right.
In code. Or missed a test case or something.
Exactly.
So it really is like a domino effect.
Right.
Where like one small thing can...
cascade into a bigger problem.
Yeah, okay. So these defects emerge. Why is it so important to manage them systematically? Like, what's the real...
Yeah, what's the impact?
Impact if we don't do a good job of this?
Well, the impact can be pretty significant.
Okay.
And it really ripples through the whole software development process and even beyond.
Okay.
So obviously, the most direct impact is on the quality of the software. If you have a lot of unresolved functional defects, the software is going to be unreliable.
Yeah.
Frustrating to use.
Yeah.
It's going to lead to a poor user experience.
Right.
But then there's also the financial aspect.
Right.
It's significantly more expensive to fix a defect the later it's discovered.
Right.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, think about it. A bug that's found in the initial design phase, that's much cheaper to resolve than one that's found after the software's already been released to thousands of users.
Right.
Then you're talking developer time, retesting, potentially even emergency patches and updates.
And then there's the reputation damage.
Yeah, and that's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, releasing software riddled with bugs, it just erodes trust.
Yeah.
It can damage your brand image.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've all experienced that app or that website that just doesn't work right.
Right.
It leaves a bad impression, doesn't it?
Yeah, Absolutely. Okay, so we understand what they are and why they're a big deal.
Right.
And you mentioned that they have a journey, a life cycle.
Yeah, they do.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so the defect life cycle, it's basically like a roadmap
Okay.
that a defect follows from the moment it's first identified
Right.
until it's completely resolved.
Okay.
And this structured approach, this is really crucial for making sure that no bug gets lost or forgotten about, and that each one is addressed systematically.
Okay, so walk me through like the key stages of this roadmap.
Okay, so it typically starts with a status of new.
Okay.
This is when the defect is first discovered, formally logged into the system.
Right.
At this point, no action has been taken yet.
It's just
been recorded. Right.
Okay.
The next step is typically assigned.
Okay.
So this means that the defect has been given to a specific developer or team who's going to be responsible for investigating it and fixing it.
Right.
Then you have open, sometimes called in progress.
Okay.
This is when that assigned developer is actively working on it, trying to understand the defect, find the underlying cause, and implement a solution. Right. During this stage, they might need to, communicate with the tester who reported it.
Right, yeah.
To get more details.
Okay, so then the developer goes in, writes the code to fix it, and then...
Right, so once they believe they've fixed it, the status changes to fixed. And then that code containing the fix is sent back to the testing team for retest. And this is really important, right? Because the testers, they're going to specifically rerun those tests related to the defect to see if it's actually fixed and make sure it hasn't introduced any new problems.
Right, yeah.
So if that retest is successful and the defect is no longer there, then it moves to closed, which is like the final stage. It means it's resolved. No further action required.
Perfect. It's done. But what happens if the fix doesn't actually solve the problem?
Yeah. What if it makes it worse?
Or even makes it worse, yeah.
That's when you have the status reopened.
Okay.
So if the testers find that the original defect is still there, or maybe the fix actually created a new problem, they will reopen the defect. And that sends it back to the developer for further investigation. And so that cycle, that fixing and retesting, that just continues until the defect's truly resolved. Until you can confidently close it out.
So it's just about making sure it really is gone.
Absolutely.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we now know the life cycle.
Yeah.
How do you actually communicate these defects effectively in the first place so that they
That's a great question.
Can be fixed quickly?
Yeah.
What's the...
Yeah, effective defect reporting is crucial.
Okay.
A poorly written defect report, it's like trying to solve a puzzle with only half the pieces.
Right.
The developer's not going to have enough information to understand what went wrong and how to fix it efficiently.
Okay.
So the goal of a good defect report is really to give them all the details they need to reproduce the issue and understand what the expected behavior should be.
Okay, so hit me with the essential components of a good report.
All right, well, first, you need a clear and descriptive title.
Okay.
Think about the difference between something generic, like login issue, and something more specific, like login button unresponsive on iOS 17.3 after entering valid credentials.
Right, that's much more helpful.
It is, right. The latter immediately tells you where the problem is, what's affected, and under what conditions, so it's much more actionable.
That's a huge difference right there.
Yeah, big difference.
So what else is key?
The description.
Okay.
This should give a concise overview of what happened and what was supposed to happen.
Okay.
So instead of just saying a login doesn't work, a better description might be, when entering valid credentials in the login form, the app doesn't respond when the login button is tapped and no error message is shown.
Okay, so be precise.
Yes.
About the failure, but also what success would have looked like.
Right, exactly.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Now, what would you say is the most critical piece of information?
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah.
The steps to reproduce.
Okay, yeah.
This is where you give a detailed, numbered list of actions that anyone can follow to see the problem for themselves. So for our login example, it might be 1, open the application on an iPhone running iOS version 17.3. 2, navigate to the login screen. 3, enter a valid username. 4, enter the corresponding valid password. 5, tap the login button. Expected result. The user should be logged in and redirected to the main screen. Actual result. The login button is unresponsive, no loading indicator, no error message. User remains stuck on the login screen.
Right, so it's like a recipe.
It is.
Anybody can follow.
Yeah, no guessing games involved.
And just see the same thing. I see how that would save a ton of time.
It does, right.
Because it could take hours to figure out
exactly
how did you get there.
Right, and you might not even be able to reproduce it if you don't have the exact steps.
Right, exactly. So, okay, what other details are important?
Well, the environment in which the defect occurred.
Okay, so like what?
That's crucial.
What does that mean?
Well, this tells the developer the specific setup where the issue showed up. Yeah. So this might include the operating system, the version, the specific device model, the browser version if it's a web application, and the version of the software being tested.
Right, because it could be that it only happens on a certain iPhone.
Right.
Or a certain version of Chrome or whatever.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, for example, you might say device, iPhone 12, operating system, iOS 17.3 application version.
Yeah.
2.5.3.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So then we have severity and priority.
Yes.
So tell me the difference.
Okay, so severity indicates the impact of the defect on the software. You know, like, is it a critical issue that makes the whole thing unusable, or is it just a minor cosmetic flaw?
Right.
And then priority indicates how quickly it needs to be fixed.
Okay.
So a critical defect that affects like a core function, that's going to have a high priority. So you might have something like severity. Critical, app crashes upon login.
Okay.
Priority, high, must be fixed before next release.
Okay, so it gives a sense of urgency to the issue.
Absolutely.
Are there any other things that can really help developers?
Oh, yeah, attachments.
Okay.
Attachments can be super valuable.
Okay.
So screenshots, those can visually show the problem.
Yeah.
Screen recordings, those can demonstrate the steps leading up to the defect.
Right.
And log files, those can give developers some technical details about what was happening in the background when the problem occurred.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, sometimes a picture or a log file can just give you that extra context.
Yeah,
the words alone can't capture.
Right. So the key takeaway is be very specific.
Yeah.
Give as much information
as possible.
And that will lead to a faster resolution.
Absolutely. The better the report, the faster the developers can understand and resolve the defect.
Right.
And that minimizes frustration for everyone involved.
Okay. Now, you can imagine, especially on a big software project.
Oh, yeah.
With tons of testers.
Yeah.
And lots of programmers, you're going to have a ton of these defect reports.
Right.
So how do you actually manage all this?
Well, that's where defect tracking and management tools come in.
Right. You need some tech to manage the tech issues.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what are some of the go-to tools for this?
Well, there are several that are really effective.
Okay.
One of the most popular, especially for larger teams, is JIRA.
Okay.
It's from Atlassian.
Okay.
And this is a versatile tool. It integrates really well with agile development.
Right.
And it handles not just bug tracking,
right,
but broader project management as well.
Okay.
So you can track the status of each defect, assign it to specific people,
Right.
set priorities,
Right.
and manage the entire workflow from creation to closure.
So it's kind of like a central command center for all the
it really is.
software hiccups.
It's a very robust and customizable system.
Okay, great. What if you have a smaller team or maybe
good question.
a slightly simpler project?
So for teams that are maybe smaller or have simpler needs, there's Bugzilla,
Okay.
which is a well-established and very powerful open source option.
Okay.
And it's specifically designed for tracking bugs.
Okay.
Offers a lot of features, including extensive filtering and reporting capabilities.
So it's just a very focused...
Yeah, it's a solid choice if you're just looking for dedicated bug tracking.
Okay.
Without all the broader project management features.
Right. Okay. Now what about... if you're working with a certain set of technologies, like say you're in the Microsoft ecosystem.
Yeah. So if you're heavily invested in Microsoft, there's Azure DevOps.
Okay.
And this is particularly good for teams in that ecosystem because it offers integrated defect tracking alongside project planning, version control, and CI/CD pipelines.
Right. So it's like a...
So it's a very unified platform.
Yeah, it's all in one place.
Exactly.
Okay. And then finally, I understand there's one called TestRail.
Yeah. So TestRail...
Oh, no, it's a bit different.
It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
It's primarily a test case management tool.
Okay.
But it also has some great features for logging defects.
Okay.
Directly from test results.
Okay, I see.
So that integration between testing and defect management
Right.
can be very valuable for making sure you have comprehensive coverage.
Right, you don't miss anything.
Exactly.
Okay, so it seems like there's really a tool for every team size, budget, and whatever tech you're using.
Yeah, you can find a tool that fits your needs.
Okay, now what are the advantages of using a dedicated tool like these as opposed to just like a spreadsheet
Good question.
or email or something?
So the benefits are huge.
Okay.
The main one is centralized information.
Okay.
All the defect reports, their status, their history, any related discussions all in one place.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, no more digging through emails or
Yeah.
trying to find the right spreadsheet. So,
Okay, less chaos.
yeah, much less chaos.
Okay, and
But it also really enhances collaboration
Go on.
because developers, testers, even stakeholders, they can communicate directly within the tool.
Okay.
Add comments, attach files, track progress in real time.
Okay.
Streamline communication just avoids misunderstandings
Right.
and speeds up the whole process.
And I'm assuming these tools also generate some interesting reports.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They have powerful reporting capabilities.
Oh, yeah.
So you can track trends, see what areas are more prone to bugs,
Right.
measure the team's efficiency,
Right.
and generate detailed status reports for management.
Right, so you can really improve over time.
Yeah, that data-driven approach is super valuable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive here, what are some key takeaways for the listener? What are some best practices they should keep in mind?
Okay, let's recap the essentials.
Yeah.
First and foremost, always report defects with clarity and detail.
Right.
That's going to impact how quickly they can be understood and resolved.
Yeah.
Using standard templates for reports that can really help ensure consistency.
Right.
And that you're always capturing the right information.
Right.
Effective collaboration between testers and developers, that's vital for quick feedback and faster fixes.
Right.
And leverage those tools. Tools like JIRA, Bugzilla, Azure DevOps.
Right.
Those can help you manage that whole life cycle effectively.
Okay. And of course, prioritize.
Yes. Prioritize those defects.
Yeah.
Make sure you're focusing on the most critical issues first.
Right. So you can minimize the negative impact.
Exactly.
Okay. So really, defect management is all about quality software.
It is.
It's
a cornerstone of building high-quality software.
And if you're using a good process
Absolutely.
and the right tools,
Yes.
it can really improve everything.
Yeah, it reduces the time to resolve issues, improves collaboration,
Right.
and ultimately leads to a more reliable and user-friendly product.
It's a win-win.
It is.
So there you have it.
Yeah,
A deep dive into the world of defect management.
we did it.
Hopefully, this has given you, the listener, a clear understanding of this often unsung process
Absolutely.
and why it's so critical to good software.
Yeah, and something to ponder.
Yeah.
Think about how these principles of clear communication,
Right.
structured workflows, and using the right tools,
Right.
think about how those might apply to other areas
Right.
of your work, even your personal projects. What benefits might you unlock
It's interesting.
if you focus on these elements in different contexts?
Yeah, it's like a way of thinking
It is.
that can really improve a lot of different things.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that was great. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
We'll see everyone next time.
See ya.